So I guess there's a bit of tension between the need to have a vaccine as quickly as possible, or several vaccines for that matter, and the process that's involved in getting to safe and effective vaccines, because by the end of the day, we need them to be both safe and effective. And usually people are, looking at a process of several years, and all of a sudden we seem to be able to do this in 12 months or maybe 18 months. And it's really a combination of unprecedented stakeholders coming to the table at the same time and think through processes one step ahead of the time, and the concerns that the usual procedures are still applied that regulate the licensure of vaccines. And I think this is where some of the tension has come from.
So you're worried that if we hurry the process along, some of the rules might be broken?
I certainly don't expect corners to be cut, although we have seen some processes that have developed at a level of speed that we haven't been able to do that before. Or maybe the question is, why are we not doing this more often?
Yeah, could well ask that. Hopefully we won't have to again in such a hurry. But you've also criticised what you call sort of the politicisation of this process. Can politics in fact help accelerate the development of a vaccine? I'm thinking about funding and possibly even bringing the world together.
No, of course, and you're quite right there. And I think in a sense, there's politics and politicization. So there's politics in bringing people together at a table to make funding available. And clearly, within countries and between countries, that has happened. And that's a good thing. What I have alluded to in interviews and things I've written is that vaccine deadlines should not be used for election purposes or for scoring points, because ultimately the vaccine licensure is driven by the science and not by a deadline that is put upon politicians.
Are you getting, do you think, all the information you need? I'm thinking about the tracker in particular. Are you getting enough information for the tracker to work efficiently?
Yeah, so maybe just take a step back and explain a little bit about the tracker. So at the Vaccine Centre at the London School, which I lead, we have developed it's kind of an app or a space on our website where we're keeping track of the over 200 vaccine candidates that are out there. And, the information about those candidates comes from publicly available documents. And what's more important really is the candidates that have moved forward into clinical studies. And in part of those studies, the candidates that have moved into clinical trials in the phase of efficacy, so phase 3. Now, the good thing is that the majority, all of those trials are supposed to be registered on clinical trial registers, and that is a publicly available resource. And we can link on our tracker every single trial that is being proposed to that registration, and automatically it pulls out the basics of the protocol and what people are looking for, where the trial is being done, how many people are involved. So I think, the information is in the public domain. What we have done with the tracker is to make it accessible at a click of a button, and that's proved very, very popular. We've got over 1,000 hits a day on that tracker. And
so you are getting the information you need?
We do, because the information, as the trials go on, information will become available to the investigators. For example, safety signals or, side effects which might be related to vaccine or placebo. Most of them might not even be related to the vaccine at all. And within the protocols, as long as the investigators are blinded, they won't necessarily know where any specific effect will come from. And whilst the trial is in progress, we will not see that information. But when the trial is, or the database for the trial is closed, that information will have to be made public, especially when they are submitting the regulatory dossier. And then it will be subjected to incredible scrutiny. And then ultimately the verdict will come whether the product is fit for purpose or not.
Can I just focus now purely on the vaccine? Are we talking about one panacea, one silver bullet, one vaccine?
Yeah. So first of all, I don't think we'll just have one vaccine. There are so many candidates in trials, and that is good to keep a mixed portfolio, because we don't actually know enough about the disease and how to prevent it to be really putting all our eggs in one basket. So I think we'll end up with several vaccines. Some of them will work better in some populations than in others. For example, we need vaccines that work well in the elderly as well, that will work in different geographical areas. And just to give a little note of caution about the vaccine being seen as the silver bullet, whichever vaccine or whichever vaccines it might be, because it's not going to be available like the moment the regulators have said it is licensed. There's a whole process of logistics involved in getting a vaccine to the pharmacy down the road from you if you want, or to the doctor down the road from you. And all of those steps, manufacturing, rollout, identifying the most needy groups first, etc. Those are all processes that people are planning for at the moment. But because we don't yet know which candidate or which candidates it might be at the other side of that tunnel of the clinical trials, we can't really, be definite on everything. Well, and also, we will still have to have other measures in place until there's a level of vaccination achieved in the population that might hopefully make them less necessary.
So this is a very difficult question, but even if you accelerate the research process, how quickly, what kind of time scale are we talking about to get past the regulators and into distribution?
Sure. I mean, this is really the million-dollar question, and I get this asked quite a lot, and it's not that easy to
obviously,
answer.
Beate, everybody wants to know.
Absolutely, and I'm not saying I've got the fond of wisdom here and the crystal ball, but my projection is that we will have some data on outcomes of clinical trials before the end of the year. We don't know what that data will look like. It could be really very good. It could be not good at all. So we can't really, let's just assume it is brilliant, right? And the vaccine specifications meet the more than 50% efficacy, which is the sort of target profile that the regulators have set. So then the regulators, over probably several weeks, will have to comb through all the information that was collected during the trial. Then the international community of regulators, which has already formed a consortium of sort of mutually accepting labeling and the various conditions, efficacy, etc. And there's a consensus around that, which is unprecedented as well. WHO has just published a document for consultation to actually have the regulators look at whether they'd be happy with certain conditions that could be applying across the board, because we need these vaccines in more than one country. So let's say something gets licensed, then it needs to be manufactured, and a number of doses will be available quite quickly, and those will be primarily made available to people most at risk. So we're talking healthcare workers, and maybe the elderly or people with comorbidities who are the most needy, because we know that they're most affected by COVID. So then there's a huge effort to ramp this up into millions and millions of doses. And there's an international initiative called COVAX, which has mapped our international manufacturing capability. And they predict that with everything we throw at it, we could have 2 billion doses by the end of 2021, which should then be sort of dished out or distributed equitably through various countries in the world. So, and that will be enough to vaccinate 20% of the most needy in each country that has signed up to this deal.